Brennan just exposed the WNBA in a major way.
Christine Brennan is one of the best sports writers in the country, has been for a long time.
Caitlin Clark is way more important to the WNBA than Tiger Woods was to men's golf, even though he was huge. And to then see this negativity, like why and what should have been done? I looked seriously at the leadership of the WNBA. And how could you not be prepared for this moment? You've seen it happening in the Big Ten. You've seen it at Iowa. You see these TV ratings.
What if I told you the WNBA didn't just mishandle Caitlin Clark? They sabotaged her, not with words, but with silence, jealousy, and straight-up incompetence. While fans packed arenas and TV ratings hit record highs, the league stood frozen, watching their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity slip away. And now, one of the most respected journalists in sports is pulling back the curtain. Christine Brennan has the receipts, and what she reveals could change how you see the WNBA forever. From locker room jealousy to executive apathy, this isn't just a story about a basketball player. This is about how a league lost control of its own future and why it may never recover. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear is more than just drama. It's the truth they hoped you'd never read.
It came out. What she had to say in this book was going to shake the ground of the WNBA. She's been around for a very long time, and she knows the inner and outer workings of this league. Christine Brennan let it be known in multiple interviews that the WNBA was not ready for a superstar like Caitlin Clark.
In a blistering and unflinching expose, veteran sports journalist Christine Brennan has shattered the illusion that the WNBA was prepared to handle the arrival of its most transformative star, Caitlin Clark. Brennan, widely respected for her decades-long reporting and known for pulling no punches, has released a report and supporting interviews that allege the WNBA not only mishandled Clark's entrance into professional basketball but actively allowed a culture of resentment, incompetence, and missed opportunity to define her rookie season. This wasn't just about one player, this was about a systemic failure from the top down. According to Brennan, what should have been the league's golden moment, an explosive marketing opportunity, a massive fan engagement spike, and a breakthrough into mainstream sports consciousness, was instead treated with skepticism, silence, and even hostility. From the moment Clark declared for the draft, there should have been a seismic shift in the WNBA's approach. Instead, league executives reportedly downplayed her potential, comparing her impact to Maya Moore, a great player, no doubt, but someone who never carried this level of national visibility. Brennan frames this moment not as a slip-up, but as a colossal misread of the sports media landscape, where all signs pointed to Clark becoming a phenomenon. But what followed revealed how unready and unwilling the WNBA was to embrace that reality. Brennan, in her investigative reporting and public statements, dives deep into the jealousy and internal politics that she claims infected the WNBA's response to Clark. With a league that is approximately 74% black, Brennan doesn't shy away from discussing how race may have complicated the reception of a white woman from Iowa becoming the face of the sport. While she acknowledges this is a complex and uncomfortable topic, Brennan makes it clear the tensions were real and they were quietly affecting how veterans, coaches, and officials treated Clark. Her rise wasn't universally celebrated. It was met with icy detachment and subtle sabotage. Brennan outlines how some players saw Clark not as a rising tide that could lift all boats, but as a threat to their own legacy and spotlight. The result? A toxic environment that enabled on-court fouls, backhanded media quotes, and an overall reluctance to protect or promote the league's biggest new asset. She doesn't claim that every player was jealous, but she argues that the league failed to set the tone by allowing envy to dictate the narrative. This wasn't a case of locker room drama. Brennan presents this as a fundamental leadership failure, a missed chance to unify the league around its future star. From a marketing standpoint, Brennan's findings are damning. She points to the sheer absence of preparation from the WNBA in the face of the Caitlin Clark phenomenon. Despite years of data from her college run, sold-out arenas, top TV ratings, viral social media content, the league failed to prepare adequate merchandise, schedules, or promotional efforts. While Clark packed stadiums and drew record-breaking viewership, the WNBA struggled to even get her jersey in stock. Brennan describes the situation as like watching a bakery shocked that customers actually want to buy bread. She exposes how major media moments were squandered, how league officials made bizarre scheduling decisions that buried key games in low-visibility time slots, and how basic infrastructure for fan engagement was missing. In short, the WNBA didn't just drop the ball, they never even picked it up. Brennan's book frames this as a near psychological resistance within the WNBA, a fear of mainstream success, a self-sabotaging preference for obscurity over spotlight. She argues that some league officials simply didn't know how or want to deal with this level of visibility, choosing to stick with outdated, small-market strategies that kept the sport niche. But perhaps the most alarming element of Brennan's expose is her investigation into how Clark was treated on the court. Game after game, Clark absorbed physical punishment, flagrant fouls, hard hits, and subtle cheap shots that often went unpunished. Brennan connects this to a league-wide refusal to protect Clark as a valuable asset, framing it as not just a lack of whistleblowing by referees, but a cultural problem. Veteran players, perhaps fueled by envy or frustration, routinely targeted Clark, while officials seemingly looked the other way. Brennan doesn't imply this was orchestrated from the top, but she is clear: silence from leadership allowed it to continue. She compares this treatment to a kind of internal hazing meant to humble Clark, even as it jeopardized her safety and undermined her ability to perform. The league's failure to intervene wasn't just negligent, it signaled to the public, the players, and the press that this kind of behavior was acceptable. Brennan's reporting paints a picture of a league where leadership refused to rise to the occasion, leaving its most marketable player exposed. Adding to the dysfunction, Brennan outlines how new media platforms, YouTube creators, TikTokers, podcasters, were far ahead of the WNBA in recognizing Clark's potential. While legacy outlets and league insiders hesitated, these independent voices were already building narratives, creating fan-driven hype, and tracking her journey with the enthusiasm the WNBA should have shown. Brennan sees this as a generational divide. While the traditional power structures of women's basketball remained cautious and reserved, a younger, more agile media ecosystem embraced Clark as the future. This divide extended to how the league communicated with fans. Where YouTubers were crafting viral breakdowns and building loyalty, the WNBA struggled with flat, uninspired PR. It's a classic case of old guard versus new media, and Brennan shows how the WNBA ended up on the wrong side of history, ceding its narrative to outsiders simply because it failed to move with the times. On an international level, Brennan exposes another failure. The WNBA completely missed the chance to capitalize on Caitlin Clark's growing global appeal. As women's basketball expands in Europe, Asia, and Africa, players like Clark offer a bridge to global audiences. She had the reach, charisma, and market recognition to become a global ambassador for the sport, but the league made little effort to position her as such. Brennan criticizes the lack of international marketing, overseas promotional tours, or even translated content that could have turned Clark into a worldwide phenomenon. Instead, the WNBA stayed local, provincial, and reactive. In Brennan's view, this wasn't just a missed chance, it was a failure of imagination. She likens it to planting a flag on the moon and then forgetting to tell anyone you were there. At a time when sports leagues across the world are desperate for breakout stars who transcend borders, the WNBA had one fall into their lap and did almost nothing with her. Brennan's conclusion is especially harsh when it comes to how the WNBA's leadership handled, or failed to handle, the explosive rise of Caitlin Clark. She names names. She calls out Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and other senior officials for ignoring obvious warning signs, choosing inaction over innovation. According to Brennan, this wasn't ignorance. It was willful blindness. There were countless opportunities to shift strategy, pivot toward bigger media deals, invest in merchandising, or even just communicate better with fans. But again and again, the league opted for the safe, small response. Brennan argues that this caution was driven not by concern for the game's integrity, but by fear of losing control. In other words, Clark's arrival threatened to rewrite the power structure, and instead of embracing that, the WNBA tried to tame it. Finally, Brennan explores the broader implications of this fumbled opportunity. She positions Caitlin Clark as not just a player, but a cultural force. Her rise coincided with a rare moment of mainstream interest in women's sports, driven by social media, new fandoms, and a changing landscape in gender representation. Brennan argues that this was the moment the WNBA had been waiting for, proof that women's basketball could draw crowds, create stars, and move product. And yet, because of petty jealousy, outdated leadership, and internal power struggles, the league let it slip through its fingers. Instead of standing behind Clark and using her success to uplift everyone, too many insiders chose to diminish her. Brennan's reporting makes clear, this wasn't just a failure to promote one player. It was a failure to promote the sport. And unless the WNBA learns from this misstep, she warns, they risk losing the next generation of fans, players, and opportunities.